Hi, this is Regina Y. Favors with a topic from the Toxic Encounters book. And the topic is emotional eviction, which I explore in chapter 3 of the book. The book is titled Toxic Encounters: Why People Pursue Rebound Relationships, Part 1. And it is part 1 of a 3-part series. So, emotional eviction is something that we don't necessarily discuss. We look at emotional separate within different and multiple contexts, and then we understand eviction to mean or to be related to someone being kicked out of their house or out of their apartment. The physical is both the court process as well as the physical process where the um, constable comes and evicts a person out of their place unless that person is already moved out. But I thought about this when I think about rebound relationships and how they often take a turn for the worse. Here it is: the core partner wants to return to the relationship, and the person that you're with wants also to return. But the person that you are with has been using you as a rebound, and what began as involuntarily you not realizing that you were a rebound, and then the discovery of it, and instead of leaving the relationship or exiting the relationship, you decide to stay, stick it out, try to work out the relationship, even though your partner is making every intention and using every strategy and allocating every effort to return to his core partner. And the core partner is usually the person that they've uh, been with, either married or in a long-term situation. They broke up for a minute, and that person decided, one of the two people decided to pursue a rebound relationship, got involved, feelings got involved, and there was the threat of that rebound relationship possibly converting to something much more long term. And what stopped that process from happening was the person of the core partner, the core relationship said, okay, I want to get back together. So then when that happens, it ends whatever relationship you were trying to have with the partner. So then you have to wonder, when does emotional eviction happen? And how is emotional eviction really defined? And I think emotional eviction really begins much earlier in a relationship. I mean, really, when you think about it, the fact that the person has to seek a rebound already tells you that there is some sort of emotional eviction before a relationship can even begin. But the emotional eviction can be both a response to the core partner deciding to return uh, to the core relationship and leaving the rebound relationship hanging, or in my in my understanding and in my sort of thinking about this concept, I think emotional eviction could also mean a type of punishment. And it's kind of hard to really explore that second part, um, because there isn't much in the psychology literature that really reflects emotional eviction as a core key term or key phrase. I see a lot of relational termination as key phrases, breakups, things like that, um, relationship dissolution. But emotional eviction, I believe, is something that happens as a part of a process. So if you're looking at emotional eviction where there is maybe like abandonment or something, where one of the couples is mad at the other, and what people do is they often try to um, stop the process of conflict resolution, go to their separate corners, and like a wounded deer, they're mad, they don't speak to each other, they each give the silent treatment. Somebody tries to reach out and another person decides, no, I'm not ready. And there's some sort of abandonment. There is a process of sort of just being mad at each other, going to bed mad at each other. But emotional eviction, I believe, happens when, say, a partner, and let's just say a man for a minute, decides that he wants to step out of the core relationship and choose an affair partner as a backup mate, not telling the wife initially until she finds out. And then before he actually exits the relationship through um, formal divorce proceedings, he will emotionally evict his wife out of the relationship. So that means um, that goes to that abandonment, that goes to not being a participating member in a relationship, not coming home, spending more time with the affair partner, and becoming more soul tied and emotionally tied and psychologically tied, mentally tied, financially tied to that new partner. And so it is just a matter of time when the person is evicted uh, formally out of the relationship, meaning that the male partner, decides to kick her out, takes the house, and moves in the affair partner. And the affair partner now becomes a member of a new core relationship. So emotional eviction, that could be what I just described, could be a person who decided, I just no longer want my marriage. I want something new. They could be having a midlife crisis, and they could have been a cheater from the very beginning of the relationship. And so they have just decided that I'm just not going to continue in this relationship, in this marriage, and I want somebody else. That doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with punishment. That could be just a person who made a decision that I just no longer want the relationship. When I think about the punishment aspect of it, it's the person who shuts down communication. Something you've done to the person, some kind of offense you've committed. Maybe you know about it, maybe you don't, and it has been triggered. It triggers one of the partners, and the partner just shuts down all communication, won't call, won't respond if you decide to call and try to work things out, refuse to just reveal what the problem is, refuse to resolve conflict, refuse to communicate. Just there's this sort of deliberateness, obtuse um, behavior where they're just going to not um, see it through. There's no closure. There's no real room for reconciliation. And it's like the person is leaving you hanging. I don't know if anyone has ever had that experience where you were putting your trust in something that the person was supposed to do, or you were supposed to do as well, in coordination with each other, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's a shutting down of the communication process, whatever was being developed at that time process, whatever whatever part of the process that you were supposed to contribute. There's just nothing, just a complete nothing. And in some cases, when it comes to a romantic relationship, that could be a type of punishment. And a punishment is usually when you are inflicting a penalty because of an offense. And if you take it to the higher level of emotional eviction, it is like the person is expelling you from being a member of the relationship, if that makes sense. Here it is, you are a two-part romantic relationship. You both have membership in the relationship, and the eviction part of it is that way, the way the person is expelling you. You know, um, you know what expel means, right? Uh, you you've been in school, you've committed an infraction. The penalty was calling your parents and then some kind of suspension or something that led to expelling. That means that the principal and the student resource officer came to the classroom to come get you out of the classroom, walked you to the principal's office. You had to sit down and have a conversation about what you did wrong and why the solution of expelling you is appropriate. And then they walked you off the campus into your parents' car, into your parents' responsibility, and then you have to stay home for whatever length of time the suspension or expulsion requires. And it's the same if you think about that image and relate it to the romantic relationship. I think you will have a very good understanding about how people expel you out of relationships, how they evict you out of the relationships. If you think about Tyler Perry's Medea's Family Reunion, where one of the main characters, the woman, a black woman, is trying to appeal to her husband, who is being unkind, almost bullying, like stressing her out, not knowing that he's been carrying on a whole relationship with someone else, fathering kids, etc. And if you remember the image of her just trying to appeal to him, and then he's saying get out of his car, and when she visits his office, she sees the woman, and something about her situation just kind of triggers her. And then eventually she's home in a dress that she can't really wear, because it's really the dress of the woman that the man is having an affair with. And the man comes home, and he comes home with the woman, and they have their mini battle royale or pre-battle royale. And then he's basically telling her that you have to go, and she don't want to go. And then he starts dragging her out. So that means she's being dragged out of the house. She's been dragged out of the marriage. She's being dragged out of the relationship. She's been dragged out of access to finances, resources, everything. He is evicting her. Now, it's illegal because she should have rights to the house. That means she doesn't know her own rights, right? But it's him evicting her and bringing in the affair partner, who's now going to become what he wants her to be, his wife. So when you think about that image, and how many times have you seen other types of images where the husband or the wife is kicking the other partner out? And in some cases, if you look at the first part of what I was trying to describe as emotional eviction, the person just decided that he or she wants another partner. But then if you look at the second part of what I was trying to describe as punishment, there's some level of punishing that he's trying to do in that situation if he's dragging her out of the house. If he's dragging her out of the house. If he wanted a divorce, he could have easily just said he wanted a divorce. So why do the punishing aspect of it by dragging her out and evicting her on her butt, even having a moving truck already ready for her to move with no money and no place to go? So I want you to think about those images when you think about emotional eviction, because it's something that I want to continue to explore. I don't know if I'm going to do full research on it, and I don't really know if I'm coining the phrase emotional eviction, but when I conducted a keyword search, I couldn't find psychology literature on it or even just a definition for it. So I wonder if then I have my work cut out for me. So let's go over this emotional eviction, which is explored in chapter 3. And I'm going to just read the questions and then add analysis. When does emotional eviction happen in a core relationship? When does emotional eviction happen in a rebound relationship? Is the rebound relationship an eviction? When should we emotionally and physically evict someone out of our relationship and or life? Well, emotional eviction happens in a core relationship, and the core relationship, again, is defined as either a marriage or long-term relationship. that happens. That is really truly a process. Someone has decided unbeknownst to you that they no longer want the relationship. They don't tell you that. The person doesn't tell you that. The person doesn't. What they do is they just begin to withdraw emotionally, psychologically, mentally. They might decide to stay at the office a longer term, a longer time. They might decide to take trips. It, it doesn't always mean that they initially are involved with someone else. There might be the hint of a possibility of someone else, but it doesn't always mean that they are involved with somebody else. It means in some cases that the thrill of the relationship with you, the height of it, the emotional feelings that you get initially in a relationship are sort of subsiding. That's why people always say, and I say myself, that we need to stop starting relationships with sex and begin them with conversation, because you will know if someone has staying power, has a work ethic when it comes to relationship development, if you hold a conversation. If you are starting out in a relationship with someone and you say something that you don't know is offensive because you don't know them enough to know it, that what you are saying may have a connection to something that they have experienced, and they automatically stop communication with you, don't call you, or when you try to call them, they're kind of short, or they don't return messages, that is the biggest sign that they are not the type of people who can communicate, who can sit down and talk this thing out, and that their pattern of behavior has been always to just up and leave, just up and stop communicating, be mad. If you're both living in the house, won't say anything. I know women in particular, if they're mad at a partner and don't want to actually communicate what's going on, they will purposely come out of the room, go into the kitchen, slam the cabinets, put the pot on the stove, slam it on the stove, wash the dishes, almost breaking the dishes. And when the man asks what's wrong, they say nothing. They won't say anything. They won't respond. They just keep slamming things around. Let it go on, maybe like 1 or 2 days, because the man has decided not to continue to engage the husband or whatever. And then they turn around and yell, and now they want to say something when they had the opportunity to go on ahead and say something. So then in that scenario, if this is happening multiple times, when both of you are getting into it with each other, conflict, and there's one person who is interested in trying to resolve it and another person is not interested in trying to resolve it in a timely manner. People do need time. I'm the kind of person, I do not want to disrespect you. So what I will do is I will take a walk outside, or I would get on the bus, because I ride the bus, and I would take a long bus trip back and forth to the ends of the lines, and then come back into the house, because I'm not looking really to talk down to you or disrespect you or dishonor your role in the relationship. So everyone needs some kind of time, because you don't want to have to be able to do that. But if you're letting weeks go by and then all of a sudden you decide now you want to address it, when you had really a good week, less than a week to address it, people will begin to not trust you. Your partner will begin to not trust you. And then when there's no trust because of lack of communication or consistency in the relationship when it comes to conflict resolution, then that person will begin to withdraw emotionally. They will begin to process almost a visual of themselves leaving the situation, and that might play itself out as the man hanging out with his boys, going basketball, playing basketball all the time, going to clubs or something, or the woman hanging out with her friends, sometimes spending the night at her friend's house, a friend who might also be married. And you have all these different scenarios where there's a processing of sort of emotionally withdrawing from the relationship to the point that both parties are now emotionally evicting themselves from the relationship. They are so separate from each other emotionally, psychologically, mentally, that it doesn't take much time for them to now take their finances and exit the relationship. So in that scenario, there's mutual emotional eviction. But then if you have a partner a male partner, and men like to fix things, right? They like to resolve things, especially if their female partner comes to them with a problem. They like to be the ones who fix things. And if you are continually preventing that person from fixing the problem, it's going to garner mistrust or distrust. He's not going to feel respected or significant, because men base their ability to be significant on how they solve problems, right? It's not the only thing, but it's at least one of the things. And when they feel like they are useless in a situation, in a relationship, core or common law situation, their mind and their heart seeks a person who will let them solve a problem. And that's how sometimes affair partners begin. The development of affair partners begin because there is a person who is willing to let that man solve a problem, right? If you look at the situation with a woman and she is struggling with her husband putting his mother ahead of her in terms of priorities, or his family ahead of her, she may want to cook Thanksgiving dinner, but his mother wants to cook Thanksgiving dinner or something like that and expects everybody at the house. Well, she's going to find herself talking to one of her friends. And usually it's a married partner, one of her friends. And she's going to spend more time at her house complaining about her husband and his mother and his family and how they all don't get along. And one of those days, she's going to come to her friend's house while the friend is not there, but the husband is there. Maybe he took off early, or maybe it's his day off. And she's going to then rant and rave and talk to him about it. And one day there's going to be a hug to comfort her. And then somehow there's a pattern that's going to continue, and she's going to be over there in her friend's house having sex with her husband. And that's how emotional eviction can happen in that situation. So then not only has she emotionally evicted herself from her current marriage, but she's now emotionally evicting her friend from her own marriage and her friend's husband from his own marriage. So it has this perpetuating domino effect when people don't learn how to resolve their own personal issues. You should not always have to run over to a friend's house to get comfort when you need to learn how to comfort yourself. So emotional eviction can happen in a core relationship from different angles, different causes, multiple motives, and different strategies, of course. When does emotional eviction happen in a rebound relationship? So the rebound relationship is basically a false relationship. It's sort of like an illegitimate relationship, because people who want to be in relationship will initiate a desire to be in relationship. When you have a partner who is exiting a relationship, a core relationship, because of a breakup, and then that person seeks another partner, maybe he found that person at the bar and then they ended up having sex, a one-night stand that turned into some little mini relationship of sorts. Well, the person who did that did not tell the rebound that he or she is a rebound, because initially it was just a one-night stand that then converted into a rebound relationship. But the person who just exits a core relationship is already on the rebound. And people know enough about rebounding and being on the rebound to know that it is never a safe bet to go and have quick sex with somebody because you are brokenhearted from your breakup and not expect that person to catch feelings. People catch feelings all the time. So then emotional eviction is already an obvious thing when it comes to rebound relationships, because a rebound relationship is not a true relationship. It is temporary. It is a short-term mating strategy. It is an ego boost that the rebounder uses to basically suggest to himself or validate the belief that I'm not all bad. My wife, she trying to tell me I'm all bad, and I'm not all bad, because if I was all bad, I wouldn't have been able to get this woman here. And she likes me and she wants to be with me. A woman can say the same thing. My husband trying to tell me I'm not this, I'm not a good woman, I'm not a good wife. But this man at my job, he seems to like what I bring to him for lunch. I cooked a meal, he ate it, so he can't say it's me. There's all of these uh, different justifications and ways people validate their strange logic to continue in relationships that do not serve them. Just because you were able to get a need met does not mean that that relationship is going to be a relationship that serves you. And so it is better to rebound to exercise, or rebound to better health, or rebound to reading, rebound to journaling, rebound to community service, versus going and finding somebody who will take you in emotionally and sexually for a short term, and expecting that you can get up and leave that relationship without consequence. So emotional eviction is obvious for a rebound relationship, because once the person who is heartbroken over the breakup of their relationship comes to his senses, he's going to get up out of that bed with that rebound, put back on his clothes, get his head straight, get back into the car, and try to work things out with his ex, or not a complete ex. Because until you have some kind of conversation about settling affairs and settling the relationship, that relationship is still ongoing. For a single person, you don't always need closure by speaking with a person. You just make a decision. You say that you can tell the person that the relationship is over, but you don't necessarily need this day to day, week by week, month to month, year by year closure with someone. Because if two people are coming together, it's not closure anymore. It is reconciliation. So emotional eviction is obvious for a rebound relationship, because it's a short-term mating strategy. It's only an ego boost. It is not something that's going to be long term, because there's no investment in it other than trying to get your own individual needs met. And there's a high consequence, if you completely mate switch. Because if you decide to keep the rebound, you lose all opportunity and access to the partner of the core relationship. And if you find that relationship more significant and more standard based and traditional based, and there's more investment into that relationship, if you lose it, you feel like you are losing a lot. Just because you broke up and had sex with somebody else during a breakup doesn't mean that you don't want that relationship. It doesn't mean that you don't want that preference. And that's the problem with going after rebound relationships, because there's a difference between preferences and options. And the rebound relationship is really, the person of the rebound relationship is really no different than anybody. That person could be anybody at the bar, could be anybody at the job, could be anybody that the person found and decided to have sex with. But the core relationship, which is either a marriage or long-term common law situation, That is one that is more investment. You were trying to build your lives together. You just basically hit a snag, and now you want to get back and continue on in a relationship. There's more to give. There's more to do. It's not finished. It's not complete. I don't want to give it up. And when you have a partner of a core relationship who's been playing around with a rebound, who doesn't want to give up the core relationship, it's very dangerous. If that person is emotionally evicting you out of the relationship, and a lot of times what that looks like is the person might say to you, for example, don't fall in love with me, right? He's saying to the rebound, don't fall in love with me. Now, while he's saying that, he's also playing like he's a boyfriend, doing boyfriend things, trying to shower the rebound with gifts, staying at the place, cooking dinner or eating dinner, cooking breakfast or eating breakfast. So he's doing mate like things, mate retention behavior type things that may confuse the rebound. All the while he is going back and forth with the person of the core relationship. So if he's going back and forth with that person and deciding to have sex with that person, that's when arguably the emotional eviction process happens for the rebound relationship. Because once he makes up his mind to decide to go back and try to work things out, that emotional eviction process has already begun. And that's why I say with a rebound relationship, the emotional eviction process is automatic. It's obvious. And not many people know that, because no one gets up out of their bed every morning and says, I want to be a rebound. If you're meeting someone in a bar or on your job or in a park or anywhere, you don't expect to be called or be labeled or be used as a rebound. You're thinking that you are engaging a person who might become a potential partner in a romantic relationship that could turn into a core relationship. You don't know that the person is really actually still involved with their ex, who is not really even their ex. So emotional eviction within a rebound relationship is just obvious. So then, is the rebound relationship an eviction? That's a strange way to phrase that question, but it actually is an eviction, because it's it it it, it ends before it even begins. So it's like you get into a house only to have to move out of it. You get into a relationship only to have to move out of the relationship, because you're terminal in a sense, right? You are terminal. You're just a person who is just an option in that moment, and you can, and how the partner is defining you as an option. It could be for a moment, it could be for a day, it could be for a trip to the zoo, it could be for a romantic getaway, it could be spending the weekend at your house. It could be a number of things that are moment based. And so because it is moment based, it's automatically an eviction. It's automatically, there's this sort of automatic understanding that you are going to be expelled out of this relationship before you even begin, because this relationship is reflective of expelling. Because you can't come and live with me and my partner at the house. Just because we're broken up doesn't mean that you can come and live with us. So it's automatic that I'm expelling you once my partner decides to come back around. So yes, it is an eviction. When should we emotionally and physically evict someone out of our relationship and their life? When it becomes toxic. If you go back to the rebound relationship, the person who decides to return to the core relationship but wants to keep the rebound at arm's length, that's toxic, because they have no intention of committing to the rebound, but they want to keep the rebound at arm's length just in case the marital partner or the common law partner decides to act up again. And if he or she decides to act up again, well, at least I got this rebound. Well, when you have that kind of situation, you need to go on ahead and emotionally and physically evict that person, because it's going to turn into a toxic, conflict ridden situation where you are threatening the partner to tell the wife or tell the husband. Then you may visit the house and get into some sort of argument with both of them. They may call the police on you and have you arrested, and then you are actually arrested and have to be bailed out. So now that situation is affecting your finances and also your job status, and then any other type of relationship status. And you want to emotionally and physically evict the person out of your life because it hurts your chances for the real person coming your way. It's one of those things that you want to say to a person, and you want to say it aside to yourself: get out of my way, my husband is coming. Even if you don't know who your husband is, right? But the real person is down the road. And if you continue to stay in a relationship that is sort of illegal, because you cannot carry on a romantic relationship with someone who's already married, even though people try to do it and they call it open marriage, and they try to attach some sort of legality to it. The person who is the marital partner of record is the only one who's going to get any access to resources if that situation breaks up. You may have access to resources if you have a child with the person, but other than that, the marital partner is going to get the property, is going to get the pension, is going to get access to income, etc. So before it gets to a point where you have to make a fool of yourself, where the situation could turn deadly, and this could be in either a romantic relationship, friendships, family relationships, etc., before it looks like you're going to go to jail, before it looks like you're going to do something that affects your livelihood long term, before you do anything that's going to affect your mental health, your sanity, your profession, your work, anything that is going to affect who you are in terms of character, your work ethic, your belief system, your core values. Before that happens, emotionally and physically evict the person out of your life. You have every right to make that type of decision, and that will require you to go no contact, change your numbers, block anybody on social media, email, everything, because you cannot win in the situation. It doesn't matter what you think about your partner. He is not your partner. He is a partner of a long-term or marriage that he did not reveal initially, and trick you and played you and caused you then to subsequently play yourself, because you brought into the belief that you could save him from his own marriage that he doesn't want to leave, or you bought into the idea that you could marry her, and have a whole life together, right? And so when that happens, you want to go on ahead and emotionally evict. If you go back to the Tyler Perry Medea's family reunion film, the main character ended up having to help him when he got sick, when he was shot in the courtroom. And the woman that he left her for left him, took all the finances, resources, the furniture out of the house. And the wife was the one who ended up having to nurse him back to health. But during that nursing back to health, she was actually emotionally evicting him out of, well, emotionally evicting herself out of the relationship, because then she had met someone, they got involved. She was struggling in that situation to truly embrace him, because she felt like it was just hard. She thought that she needed to be there for her husband, but the husband was never going to change. Just because he got shot and had to be nursed back to health, he still had the same belief system. Because if he got himself back together and he could walk and he was in full functional ability, he would leave her again. he would kick her out of the house again. So helping him through his process and meeting the other guy sort of helped her to emotionally evict herself out of that relationship. And it wasn't necessarily for punishment, but just to make the final decision about the relationship, that it cannot last, that it cannot go forward. And she went on ahead and took off her rings, signed the divorce papers, left the table, and found her man. And so that's why you always have to be careful about staying in situations beyond your season, because you could miss out on someone else who could actually love you and believe in you and want to marry you and protect you, and you both can love each other. So this is emotional eviction. I was sort of struggling with this initially. I had to look up some key words to really get a good understanding of it, because it is something that I am interested in thinking about and I have experienced on my own. And so I wanted to just kind of explore it and see where it took me. So Toxic Encounters, Why People Pursue Rebound Relationships, Part 1 is available on Amazon. I do explore this topic in Chapter 3. You can visit my website, reginayfavors.com, for more tips and access to videos and content. Like, subscribe, and follow. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Just type in Regina Y. Favors. Thank you very much for listening.